Thomas takes the mantle. This is your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Flashpoint Batman. In an attempt to alter the course of history, the Flash traveled back in time to save his mother's life. This, however, resulted in the crisis-level event known as Flashpoint, rippling across time and changing the world as we knew it for the worse. In this alternate timeline, Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne survived their deadly encounter in Crime Alley years ago, but their young son Bruce was killed instead. Driven by the death of his son, Thomas Wayne became Batman, though this Dark Knight is far deadlier and more ruthless than the vigilante hero his son would have become. Now, before we go ahead and start altering the courses of time, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall Thomas Wayne, Batman, stands, taking the tape measure to the very top of his head. I'm going to stop it right there. Right there. There we go. According to the trusty tape measure of mine, you're looking at the figure of Batman standing 7.4 inches in height. Let's switch that over to centimeters, revealing that the figure stands 18.8, so he's almost 19 centimeters in height. We've been having a look at a lot of DC Multiverse figures as of late, so let's bring in a couple of them right now to do some size comparisons. Just recently we had a look at Red Hood, so we'll bring him in right there. I do really like that figure quite a bit. We also just recently had a look at Batman. This is Batman, of course, from Arkham Knight. And then we also just recently had a look at Deathstroke. This was Deathstroke from Arkham Origins. A lot of different Arkham titles thrown around. Let's just move him over just a little bit more to kind of give you an idea again of how this Batman from Flashpoint, the one that we're looking at in this review, stacks up with some of the other figures that we've just recently had a look at. And of course, all those other DC Multiverse figures that I brought in for size comparisons, their reviews are currently up on the channel. So feel free to give those a gander if you like after we wrap up shop talking about Thomas Wayne here. I'd like to send also a big thank you to viewer Sherwin that picked the figure up of what we're looking at right here in this video and sent Batman from Flashpoint my way. If you'd like to follow Sherwin over on Instagram, his user there is Shellpose. I'll provide the link down below in the video description. He does some fantastic artwork using NECA figures. Really definitely would recommend you guys check him out and give him a follow over on Instagram with the username Shellpose. Again, a big thank you, Sherwin, for sending this figure my way. Let's have a look at the accessories that come included with Batman. Not so much the accessories, I suppose, but he comes included with a trading card. Some really nice artwork there on the front there of Thomas Wayne, bringing a little more red to the table than his son Bruce would have done with his costume. I do really like the design of this one quite a bit. Down below, you've got Batman Flashpoint. We flip the cardboard card around to the other side, and we've got the stats. Now, the source for this is Batman number 22 from Comics 2017. Instead of what we would normally see with Bruce Wayne, now real name is Thomas Wayne, but his height and his weight seem to be the same as his son, 6'2", and a very lean 210 pounds. And of course, there's the read-up down below as well. If you are somebody like me, likes to hold on to these cards, don't want them to get, of course, damaged, creased in any way, I always recommend putting these into trading card sleeves. The only other alternative, if you don't display all your figures, if you're probably going to be putting them in like a Ziploc bag. These cards being made of cardboard, of course, they wouldn't stand the test of time. They'll develop wrinkles, creases. They'll even be probably bent in the process. So really, if you do like these cards as much as I do, put them inside a trading card sleeve. There you go. The other thing he comes included with is a display stand. The same display stand that we've gotten with all the other DC Multiverse figures. Although I do notice on this one, I've got a little scuff of something. I thought it was initially paint. I've tried my best to rub that off, scratch that off, but I actually think it's an imperfection to the plastic. It's the only time I've seen this on the stand, and it really isn't going to ruin anything because technically the figure is going to be standing on top of it anyways. You've got the DC logo down below there, and you've got the peg right at the top corner there. It's basically the exact same stand that we've gotten with every single figure, except for a few exceptions. Superman, for example, the original one that we had gotten, came with a clear stand that had the neck, so it allowed him to be in a flight pose. But all the other figures have pretty much come with this style of stand. And I don't really feel like they need to change that anytime soon. Move that to the side as well. Those are technically non-accessories I would consider. I don't really consider a stand to be accessory. I guess it could be because it comes included with the figure. Probably wouldn't consider the trading card an accessory. Probably just said accessory like 700 times. For his true accessories, he does come included with a pair of pistols. Now, these are identical pistols, although they look like they're mirror flips to one another. You can see the safety on the one side, and yet if I flip it around to the other side, it does look like, even though they are carbon copies to one another, they're not identical in the sense that you have to flip the pistol around. So it almost looks like it's a mirror copy to the other. They're all done in black plastic, as you can see. Let me put down one here. All done in black plastic with a slight brushing of silver added to it, just again to enhance some of those details on it. I do like the fact that he comes included with pistols. Of course, you're going to probably be packing Batman with both pistols, but I suppose if you have an extra one and you don't want to display it with him, display it with Deathstroke, because after all, that figure didn't come included with one. A couple of places that you can put this, obviously, the main one would be his hands. They fit quite easily into his hand. A large handle, but the grip on Batman is also equally large, so you just fit that in place. Put it in the handle like this, and then you just sort of twist the hand, or not twist the hand, but twist the pistol around so it actually sits against his finger. You can see right there. The other thing that you can do, of course, is that Batman does have holsters. Now, they're not the same holsters that came included with Red Hood, for example. These are a little bit bigger. These slots seem a lot more open, and they're a lot easier, I find, to slide the pistols in place. Just slide down one on one side, and you can then take the pistol. You probably already know where this is going. You can slide the other one on the other side. And like I said, they fit a lot easier in there. I don't have to fight to get them in there, and I don't have to fight to get them out. There are a lot more space available, let's just say, to the holsters that came included with Red Hood. Looking at the figure of Flashpoint's Batman, we definitely get a much more grizzled-looking Cape Crusader than what we're normally used to. He definitely has much more of an angrier expression on his face, and I do like the touches that they've added, like a little bit of stubble on the bottom of his chin. Although, admittingly, you can see there's a lot more stubble that seems to be on the side of his face, and yet it doesn't get any bit of paint. I probably could say that there was maybe just too much of a wash down below, being that there's so much other sculpt all around at the bottom area here. It's the only place that actually gets afforded paint. And I think they probably could have added just a little bit less of an amount of it on the bottom of his chin, and maybe then continued more of it on the side of his face. Because as you can see, it's sculpted there, but the paint really isn't applied to either one of those areas on either side of his face. I do like the sculpting of the cowl with the shorter ears. The more redder, ruby red eyes is a nice touch. I do like he looks a lot more angrier, especially in the sculpting of his cowl. That grizzled look on his face, I keep going back to using grizzled. Grizzled is really the best word to be describing Flashpoint's Batman, if you ask me. I do like the way that the eyebrows are sculpted, even though technically this would be his cowl. But I do like the additional wrinkles that they've added to the sections around his nose and the sections around his eyebrows. Really liking the way that that turned out. Paint is pretty good on this guy, except for just, again, that little section I mentioned on the chin. I think they probably could have spread that out a little bit, not localize it so much just to the one area of his chin, and definitely give a lot more of it to, like I said, on either side of his face. As for the rest of his body, of course, he's got the pointed sections of his cape. That's one of his other notable calling cards. These are made of softer plastic. If you are somebody that runs with their Batman in hand and feeling fearful that you're going to be falling and impaling yourself in the eye, I don't know why you would be doing that anyways, but at least this section is softer rubber plastic. I mean, really all the cape here is softer plastic. It starts here, works its way around the shoulder, and as it continues its way down, you get treated to a really nice sculpted cape overall. Still has the points at the bottom of the cape, but I just really like the way it has this drape to it. So much of this, when I'm looking at it, really does look like a Spawn cape. And it's fitting, of course, that I would say that based on the company, of course, that's producing this DC Multiverse Flashpoint Batman. Of course, we spin back to the front of the figure, and we've got this nice dark gray plastic that they've used. Some additional panel lining have been added in there as well, not to mention a bat emblem that stretches from one side of the torso all the way to the other side. I do like that this is raised as well. They used a very nice shiny red and shiny black paint to really accent that that logo is standing out. I've got one little imperfection on the top corner there. It's very similar, actually, to the imperfection that I had on my stand. I don't know if it's actually paint or if it's glue, Probably could try to scrape that off, but I just really don't want to ruin the paint on this, because the paint on this guy is really quite good. Now here it doesn't seem like this is necessarily painted. I could very well be wrong, but it does look like this was probably sculpted in red plastic. The utility belt is a rather familiar looking utility belt. Instead of being yellow, of course, it's going the blood red route. And from the utility belt down, you've got a couple of holsters. Now, the holsters aren't attached to the legs, and it's smart the way that they've done that. They've kept these as separate pieces, though when you look at it from the side, it looks like this is holstered around his thigh area as well. But being this is separate, it means that you don't have any limitations when it comes to moving the figure's legs, which we'll talk about in a second. You've got the knee guard there done in a matte black plastic. The same also could be said for the chin or the shin guards, not chin guards. It looks like there's also a couple little areas that bullets have tried penetrating. There's a couple little bullet marks. There's some scratches and carved in areas to the protective gear that he's wearing. And certainly if he wasn't wearing something like this, being shot right there probably would have limited his ability to walk. Moving a little bit further up, of course, then we've got the gloves, his gauntlet gloves here. But again, all these little cracks and damaged places to it. You can definitely tell this Batman has been in battle. Even on the other side there as well. Like, it doesn't look like it's just simply we took one side, we flipped it around to the other, as there's a couple of little bullet holes on this side that don't make appearances on this side here. Let's go ahead and run through the figure's posability. So the head is on a ball joint. You can bring the head up, and that's to the highest point it will go. It can also allow the head to tilt down. And between the two, I would rather choose the option of being able to have Thomas Wayne with a more broody head down than having him looking straight up. But you do get enough of a ball joint that you can technically pull off both looks. The head goes to the fullest extent here, looking up, and goes to the fullest extent of it looking down. When you have it lower down, the head gets a little more loose, a little more like a bobblehead, I suppose. The head does rotate all the way around. You can also rock the head back and forth as well. So even though, I mean, it is really only on a singular ball joint, it gives you more than enough to get the various looks of Batman that you want. Then, of course, for the arms hinge out at a full 90-degree angle bend. In addition to that, he does also have that cup socket joint that we talk about so frequently in these reviews, but it does allow for the figure's arms to bring a little bit further forward than normally what they would if they didn't have that right there. So you can bring the arms out this way. You can rotate the arms back and forth. It's going to be a little more limited, of course, when it comes to bringing the arms all the way around, simply only because of the additional cape that's sculpted on top. You can kind of force and fight your way around it, but it is really going to limit what you're going to be able to do bringing the arms. Like, because the cup socket joint also allows you to bring the arm in this way, you get still that high reach on Batman if you wanted to have him look like he's holding on by a line. In addition to that, he does have a swivel on the bicep. He's got a double hinged elbow, as you can see right there. And he does also have hand articulation. The hands rotate all the way around. You can also hinge him back and forth this way as well. A couple of people have mentioned, when it comes to his torso, he only has an upper torso ball joint. People have said he doesn't seem to possess a lower torso ball joint. And I can't seem to get this to move either. It looks like it wants to, but I don't know if it's actually just really tight on this particular figure. It may involve me actually having to heat this up a little bit. But it does look like he could have waist articulation. It's just really tight on this particular figure. After all, if they do sacrifice this part, being able to be posable, you're still technically being able to still do this on Batman. It's not like the whole top torso is limited on what you can actually do with him. You can still tilt and rotate it all the way around. So even if he doesn't technically have, let me just see if I can peel this away. Even if he technically doesn't have a lower torso ball joint, I still feel like you can pull off enough of the look that you want and get it in the different poses and the various different action shots that you can get it, even if you do end up losing a little bit right here. And maybe one of the reasons that they may have left that off completely is just by how high that utility belt is. They probably have glued it, if anything, to the top and to the bottom so that the belt isn't going to be going anywhere. As for the legs split out. They go forward, they go back. He has a swivel at the top cut of the thigh, so basically just where it's attached to that ball joint right there. He has double hinges on the knees. You can also see where they've attached that knee guard. It's actually right in between the joints. So the joints are on either side, and the guard of the knee is right in the middle there. So it does conceal the articulation, which is good, and also doesn't get in the way of things when it comes to moving the legs back and forth this way. He doesn't have any articulation from the boots section. However, you can bring his feet up and down and rock back and forth, and he does have toe articulation. We always seem to wrap things up, it seems, on the end of these figure reviews, talking about the fact that he does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet, and that certainly does not change with Thomas Wayne here. He's overall a really good looking figure. One of the things, of course, the main thing that draws you into these McFarlane DC Multiverse figures, certainly when it comes to me, is the sculpt and the paint. Then when you really start to realize how much articulation they put on these figures, the figures do deliver exactly what I would want from a DC Multiverse line. And then, of course, with McFarlane branching off, he's not just looking at comics, he's not just looking at video games, he's looking at a whole spectrum of different characters that inhabited the DC universe. This one happened to inhabit the world of Flashpoint, and it really did turn out to be a really neat looking figure, dark and grisly like I was talking about before. Very familiar to the Cape Crusader that we know, and yet very dark and twisted in his own way. Flashpoint has got to be my all-time favorite DC animated movie. The idea that Flash would go back to save his mother's life and change yet the ripples across the entire DC universe. Changing ripples would include, of course, who would be donning the cape and cowl. Gone away would be Bruce Wayne, because he would have been the one that died in Crime Alley. Replacing him would be a much darker, crueler Batman, Thomas Wayne. And I really like the idea of having Thomas Wayne. If anyone else is going to be donning the cape and cowl and not be Bruce, why not be somebody else from the Wayne family? Of course, that's what happens to Thomas Wayne. We also know what happens to Martha Wayne. She gets a little more of a hysterical outcome from all of this. Certainly is something, if you haven't read the books, you need to be checking those out. And if you haven't even seen the animated movie of Flashpoint, do yourself a service. It is by far one of the best, if not the best, animated movie that has come out for the DC universe. Of course, talking about the figure itself, the DC Multiverse Batman here from Flashpoint gives us, again, that dark, grizzled look of Batman. I know I keep using the term grizzled, but we get a darker, crueler-looking Batman at the hands of Todd McFarlane. The figure is superposable like all the other DC Multiverse figures that we've gotten. We do get some accessories, not a lot. He only gets 2 pistols, a stand, and of course his trading card. But I don't really think Thomas Wayne needs anything more than that. Pistols holstered on the sides of his leg is really all he needs to do justice in Gotham City, and I'm glad that the figure does come included with 2 pistols. Unfortunately, Deathstroke didn't come with any, but Thomas Wayne at least came with 2. It's a great looking figure. Paint is good on this guy. The only place I would probably have corrected is the localized amount of black that's on the middle of his chin. Probably could have been spread out a little bit more, because he does have the stubble sculpted everywhere else on the bottom of his face, and yet it's only the center area of his chin that gets that little bit of dark paint. Gets a lot of that dark paint. But a great looking figure. Really glad I was able to finally have this in my collection, and a big thank you to, again, viewer Sherwin, who picked this one up and sent it my way. If you guys would like to follow Sherwin over on his Instagram account, Shell Pose, he does a whole ton of cool poses and photography, probably a lot better than what I'm doing right now, using NECA figures. Definitely would check him out. I'll provide the link down below in the video description. Have you picked up the Flashpoint Batman? Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of it, or based on this review. Also, if you're new to the channel and you're liking all the content you're seeing, most definitely consider the idea then of hitting that subscribe button down below. It's literally just below the video. And you'll notice right next to it, there seems to be something like a bell. What is that? Is that a bell? It is a bell. You knew what it was before I said it. It is a bell. You apparently have to turn that on so that YouTube knows to recommend all the videos that are coming on this channel, recommending to your doorstep. Not to your doorstep, but to your mailbox. It tells you when new videos are popping up. I don't know why they have to do that, but that's just one of those things that YouTube feels to implement. So if you are enjoying all the content, make sure not only are you hitting that subscribe button down below, but you're also turning on the bell notification. Maybe it won't even be the case in 2021. Maybe that bell will be turned into a little frog. And then I'll be saying, ribbit that frog. That doesn't sound as well as ring that bell. Anyways, lots of videos coming your way, guys. 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, you guessed it, Friday. 5 days a week, two videos a day. Lots of videos coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.